Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the garage. So I know since UCC the videos have been very sparse. We've been doing a lot of work in the garage, but it's not been, well, entertaining enough for you guys to see. Really, we've just been working on the cage, and I'm proud to say the cage is done. Well, kind of. So the cage is done except for the X brace underneath the cab across the frame rails. So that being said, that is the one piece we have left. It's probably the hardest piece to do, honestly, but let me run you through what we got, what we're doing, and how we're gonna finish this thing up. So, as you guys can see, I am far enough along that I have the seat just sitting in here on an 8x, got the steering column in. Eventually we will change this out and go to like a removable steering wheel, all that. Right now we're just trying to get back to the track, get the truck going, and then we can work on a little stuff like that. You know, stuff that's only going to take a night or two, we can do later. But we have all of our door braces in, we have our windshield support bar in, our funny car cage is in. It's looking good. Our X brace in the rear, we also have these braces coming down there. They're like a rear main hoop support bar. They come right down to the frame here. They're one of those bars that if you read the SFI manual, it's like, do we need them, do we not? It talks about a 4-link, which we don't have a 4-link. We have our traditional leaf spring suspension, so I just said screw it, let's put those in. They weren't that big a bother, but definitely have to, you know, section a piece into 2 pieces here. But anyhow, all that's done. Our rear window bars, or our back bars, I don't know what you call them, rear down bars, they're done. That's something I don't know that we needed to do because we have the funny car cage. With an 850 cage, if you have a pickup, you don't need those bars if you have a funny car cage. But I feel it will stiffen up the chassis, so it's something we did. Plus, they look cool. This thing is well beyond sleeper status, so we're not gonna worry about that. I mean, it's a full-blown race truck at this point. So put those in. Pretty much it's done. Underneath, our outriggers are all done. Our cab mounts, our front cab mounts at least, are done. Our triangulation bars, these floor triangulation bars are in. Our X brace, well, that's going to go in here, which we will talk more about here in a second. Our rear cross member and integrated drive shaft tube, I actually am going to get rid of this bar here and reuse our old drive shaft tube just coming underneath. We're gonna wait until we get the drive shaft in and do that kind of stuff. It's really kind of minor stuff at this point. Also, our lengths of tube on the frame here, as you can see, that one's a bit long. The rear one is just a tad long. You can barely see it. I'm gonna leave those long for now. I will kind of flush them off with the cab and then cap them off, but I'm gonna leave them long. There's actually a good, 4 or 5 inches that is past the outrigger itself. Really, I'm going to leave that in case we have to add additional support. I know different tech inspectors from things I've seen, you know, some of them don't like when you use tube, even though we went through the frame, they want the box tube. If we have to add something like that, we will have that stub piece still on there so we can do it. Really, other than a few ounces, shouldn't hurt the truck at all. And aesthetically, you won't be able to notice unless you actually climb underneath the truck. So talking about that X brace. That X brace, looking at the rules, and I'm gonna actually double verify before we build anything. All I can find in the SFI booklet about it is, and I know this sounds odd, the pieces of the X brace have to be longer than the distance between the frame rails inside. So to me, even if you do a straight piece, it is the distance. So now you're doing an X, so it's angled, it's going to be longer. So that doesn't really make sense to me why they would word it that way, unless I'm just not understanding what they're saying. So what I was saying about the X brace, I just wanted to read to you because, like I said, I don't really understand what they mean. It doesn't really seem to make sense how you could possibly do this, but here we go. The center floor X braces, number 4, must be at least as long as the inside width of the main frame rail. How do you make them shorter than the width of the frame rails if it's basically an angled piece going from frame rail to frame rail? That makes absolutely no sense. So anyway, to do that properly with that transmission tunnel and all that, as you guys can see here, obviously we have to get it as close to the body as possible. So that's where this transmission we picked up and our old 48 case, this one we had some issues with, so we had to get a new case. We're going to use that case, this overdrive housing, and our stock 6.7 Cummins. We're going to put that all in here so it is nestled where everything will sit, and that way we can kind of mock up what we're going to do, get that X-brace in there, get it right, and then the cage will be 100% done, cage-wise at least. We definitely have to come up with a mount for the seat. I don't think our 8x is going to pass tack. I'm not sure, but yeah, probably not going to work. But anyway, that's just the cage stuff. I mean, like I said, it's like there. Now there is a lot of additional work we have to do. If we look, obviously the floor, we're going to have to do something about the floor. We have no rear cab mounts. If we grab the back of the cab, it's still pretty solid to the cage structure with our front cab mounts and the factory front ones. But we got to do something back here. I haven't decided whether we're just going to weld it or if we're going to bolt it. I don't know yet. That's not something we need to worry about right now. So our main focus is that X-brace. So let's get our stock 150,000 mile 6.7 engine that we made 1,000 horsepower and ran a 1019 in the quarter mile. Let's get that thing stuffed back in here for hopefully the last time ever, and get this mock-up 48 set up in there so we can see exactly how we have to go about this. Our stock 6.7 block is back in the frame rails of the race truck, hopefully for the last and final time. This is just a mock-up, really. If I still had the industrial engine block that we had from the auction, year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it is now, we'd be using that, but we use that as a core with Freedom. So anyway, this will have to do. Also, we got the overdrive housing off of the transmission that we got from our man Alan. I know these look similar. They are the same height, but rest assured, the bolt pattern is different. There's some other nuances with this other case that are not the same, but we're not really concerned about that. This is different. You know, there's a bunch of stuff. Like I said, we're not concerned about that. All we need is the overdrive housing, which, as you guys can see, will bolt right up. So we will have an acceptable, not core transmission, mock-up transmission is what I want to say. And we will be able to mount that back in the frame rails with our cross member, our adapter plate, all that kind of stuff. And then we will see what we need to do for our X-bracing. I don't know. We may need to throw the transfer case on there. I don't know yet. I don't know really where all this stuff sits. It's been a long time since I've been under this thing when it's had a transmission in it. It hasn't been that long since I was under it. Just the other night, as a matter of fact, but with a transmission and all in it. So we're going to get this all in, see what that X-brace looks like. I don't know if we will be able to actually start the X-brace tonight, because the X-brace calls for 1¼ inch tube. which are triangulation bars underneath, calls for 1¼ too. We didn't have enough, so we used 1.5 inch, pretty much just because that's what we had. So this is our, like, I don't want to say scrap pile, but our leftover pile so far. A lot of 1 5/8. That is just not quite long enough for that one bar. Thank you, MD Diesel Fab, for helping us out with that. But this one right here, this is 1¼ inch. I don't know that it'll be long enough for what we need, but we can at least get started. Like I said, I don't have a bender, so we may have to either try some stuff or just find somebody with a bender who can make that up for us. I don't know yet. We got to get looking at it, but it feels good to actually be wrenching rather than welding. I know we've done very little wrenching, but it just feels good to be doing something other than fitting tube and welding. So let's get this all in there and mocked up and see what we got. All right, guys, so it's been a little while. I got good news, I got bad news, and I've got good news. So, first the good news. So I got the engine, the transmission, mock-up transmission, the transfer case all in. It was definitely the quickest install I've ever done. Having no internals in most of the transmission and no torque converter and not having to worry about all the bolts makes things very easy. It's nice. I didn't use a jack for anything other than putting the engine in. We used the engine hoist. I did kind of hoist the transfer case up there, and I won't be doing that again. I remember doing that like a couple years ago, and yeah, I'm getting old, and that's how much it's getting heavy. So anyhow, guys, that's the good news. So we got all of our engine and all that kind of stuff in, like I said, very quickly. But as you can see, it's gotten considerably later. Well, that brings us to the bad news. As you can see, our bad news stems from the rear of our transfer case. Well, not necessarily the rear, but our transfer case. So if we look at the top of the transfer case here, it's very close to the floor. So that measurement is actually, if the camera would focus, is actually just over 1¼ inch, which is the minimum tube size for the X-brace. Yeah, it just won't fit. As you can see over here, the factory floor right there is actually indented for the transfer case to fit it. It's very tight. Of course, over here where your stock exhaust would normally be, plenty of room. But basically, it is just so tight with the factory floor that trying to do this X-brace would be way too involved. Yeah, it just, as you guys can see, it would be such a hassle. We're not going to be able to complete it. So it's unrealistic to try and do it with this factory floor. Well, hold on. So as I was just trying to say, it is very unrealistic to try and do this with the factory floor. Really, to do it right, we pretty much have to either remove the floor or put little holes in the floor, if you will, to get that thing nice. I mean, otherwise there would be a lot of very complicated, extensive bends that would just not look right. It would just be terrible. I mean, I really wanted to go from the very rear to the very front with the X and just kind of basically use that X to strengthen up this whole bottom floor, which is what I think the reason of it is for. But just with that transfer case and the stock trans tunnel, it's not realistic to do. So yes, we will not be completing our 25.6 cage. But that brings us to our other good news. The cage is done. So we have a very extensive 850 cage, that's for sure. But we are well prepared for, say, next winter, cutting this floor out and doing that X-brace. That should be the only thing we really need in order to get our 25/6 cert. But that being said, this cage should easily certify for 850. It has all the design elements of an 850 plus. So we're good there. Basically, like I said, that X-brace. But realistically, the fact, you know, the chances of us needing a 25/6 cert this year are astronomical. If we got to that level, I'd be so ecstatic. I'd probably just park the truck. Well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. But anyway, guys, you get the point. That's kind of, we're building the truck for the future. I mean, a lot of the roof stuff and the funny car cage stuff is very hard, if not impossible, to do by converting an 850 cage. So we have a good basis to finish this. Really, we just need that X-brace and a new floor. So, as we didn't really get any progress to the truck tonight, we have made the decision that we're done with the cage. That being said, we still have a lot of work to do. As you can see, like I said before, we have everything mocked up. We got to fix our floor, fix all these holes, which really, it's just going to be put some patch panels down, weld them in, just, you know, bunch of tacks. We're not going to seal weld it or anything like that. We got to put a mount in the rear here. I'm thinking I'm just going to kind of build off of back here or off of the door here onto this brace and mount the rear of the cab, and then all that kind of crap is done. Then we can get our new Freedom Racing engine in here, our 6.8 liter Hamilton solid block. Ooh, can't wait to get that thing in there. We got a lot of wiring to do. We just got a ton of stuff to do. So the cage work is done. Like I said, we still have some bars we're gonna have to do to mount the seat, but ooh, we're getting back to the nuts and bolts. I can start seeing this thing together. I mean, it's all kind of just a bunch of little, it's a giant pile of little stuff that we have to do now. But the cage work is done. We're done with this bender. We can get rid of that, and yeah, we can proceed with making this thing a truck again. So guys, I've rambled on about what's going on with this thing long enough. We got the engine and all that kind of stuff in, which I have to remove once more, but it's very simple. That, you know, since we have a shell of a transmission and all that. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're excited to see the progress of the truck. I hope you are excited that the cage is, you know, the cage work is done. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that X-brace. Like I said, I don't think it's realistic to try and do, so we're not going to do it. But I also would like to hear from you guys. I just completely lost my train of thought. So I just took a few minutes to try and figure out where I was going with that, and I have no idea. So in summary, engine, transmission, transfer case, all that stuff's in. Really don't have room for the X-brace, so we're done the cage. We're just gonna do an 850, which should be more than enough for what we need for this year, which the year's gonna be about over by the time we get it done anyway. So we got wiring, we got windows to do, we got a seat to mount, we got an engine to plumb. We got a lot to do. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Get out in your garage. Get the wrenching on your truck.